Welcome back. You've been learning so much already. Our next session is all about mastering AI, not as a complicated tech topic, but as practical tools you can use right now to grow your business. Let's do this.
Hello, everyone. Happy National Small Business Week. Thank you so much for joining us for today's small business panel. My name is Stasia, and I'll be leading this conversation about artificial intelligence, AI, and how it can be used to support businesses of all sizes. I'm here with two small business owners. First, I'd like to introduce Maria Duran. Maria is the founder of Smart Brand System and a fractional chief AI officer who has trained over 18,000 small businesses. An award-winning expert featured in Entrepreneur and Fox Business, she specializes in AI policy and the shift toward answer engine optimization. Please join me in welcoming Maria. Next, I'd like to introduce Dave Meyer. Dave has over 25 years of marketing experience, and he's currently leading AI workshops across Pennsylvania. As the founder of BusyWeb, Dave has helped hundreds of companies scale through digital strategy and automation. And he's here to talk about making AI practical for your business. So please join me in welcoming Dave. All right, guys, how you ready? Are you ready to do this thing?
This is exciting. Can't wait.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really, really appreciate it. So we have some questions that are follow-ups to the presentation that we gave, and we want your perspective as small business owners. So I'll start with Maria. So Maria, one of the big focuses of our workshop was this concept of reclaiming time. And we talked about how AI has the potential to save business owners time. AI fluent workers are reporting that they're reclaiming a median of 8 hours every single week. And so what are some of the ways in which AI is helping you save time? And if you can, give us some specific examples.
Sure. It saves so much time for me in just going through email. If you think about it as small business owners, there's not a small business owner that I haven't heard lament about email. I mean, it's always something that is never ending. It feels like you never even get to reach to actually inbox zero, so you don't get to that point ever. And I love the fact that it can go in there and summarize and also highlight the actual emails that I need to pay attention to, specifically because I've highlighted these people in my AI system to be able to show that this is somebody that I don't want to miss the message from immediately, compared to maybe more of a promotional message. What's nice also is that I can also schedule that in through that. So it really makes it seamless in all those transitions when I would actually lose time because I would get distracted, by all the other messages that we see. Or a second example is actually even in just finding files. That is one thing that, as much as I know how you're supposed to name your files, and I've been through all sorts of training on how to organize it, when I get busy, I name it whatever I'm going to name it. Now, I'm a keeper of everything, so I may have 5 or 6 versions, and that can be pretty daunting when you're trying to figure out which one was the latest, how many do I have in there, and I do appreciate that it can help me get through that. It's those things that, we don't even really think about, but they are part of taking up so much of our day, and that has been helpful.
Yes, email, I feel like it takes like 30% of my workday. Punting to you, Dave, how about you? How are you using AI to save time for your business, your life?
It's almost that where don't I use AI in my work life and personal life? It's silly things from, for the holidays, we do a kind of a treasure hunt for our kids now, and it's always tricky. So it's like, okay, well, we want to put the gifts in different places around the house, and I want it to be slightly up with the times because I have a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old. So I want it to be as cringy as possible. So, write me a poem, and it's like no cap and, diff this and, all kinds of fun stuff like that.
They must love that, Dave.
They almost broke their eyes rolling them. But, in personal, that's cool stuff, right? Where you can just kind of break through that. But then in my marketing agency, we use AI all the time. So we're having conversations with clients constantly and recording those conversations, using those to automatically generate tasks, to give us the next steps that we need to take, and then to help brainstorm out ideas for things like blog posts or content, and going back and saying, okay, what are we missing from that now that we haven't thought about it, that we haven't done?
Interesting. So for both of you, and I don't know who wants to go first, these are both really interesting ways to use AI. But how do you identify which tasks are the best candidates for AI, and how do you figure out what you should keep completely manual, entirely manual, versus using an AI tool? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in, because one of the things that I counsel our clients and my team on is think about the things that you would give to maybe a low-level intern or somebody that is just getting started. And that's a really good use for AI tools. It's like, okay, if it doesn't require absolute expertise and you're looking for a brainstorming partner, if you're looking for something or looking to get rid of something that is just tedious, like take all of the insights from this one task or from this one series of interviews and put it into a presentation. AI can do that for you. So, it's the stuff that you'd rather not do, or that you really don't need expert advice on, is the first place to start.
Okay. How about you, Maria? How do you decide which tasks AI should be used for, and which you should do entirely manually?
That, it's the non-sexy routine thing that you see. It's when you're doing things that take your manual side, but then, as far as manual effort, but not as much thinking effort, really nothing unique in there. It just needs to get done. And I have a lot of tasks that I do like that in a weekly basis in my life as mom, or also in my life as a business owner. And so because of that, it can help, like Dave was saying, in being that assistant who may not know, or somebody just starting out, but can do some of the simple tasks. And I can teach it as long as I have processes towards that. And that's the hard part. I feel like that for me, it's been really helpful, because the tasks that I gave it first were the things that I knew so well, I could do them in my sleep. So it was nice to be able to give that to AI and not worry about giving, my voice. That to me is uniquely me. It's going to depend on who I'm talking to, the person, the client I'm talking to, and AI cannot make those swift moves like that. So I really do like to use it for the things that will give up the opportunity for me to think, hone in, and listen even better. So I do appreciate when it can do that.
Okay, great. So kind of building off of this idea of using AI to help you with these tasks and sort of operating as that intern in a way, we talked a lot about in the session about prompting and prompt chaining, which, the foundations for using AI. So if we were thinking of AI as your capable assistant and that can yield better results, how do you guys structure your prompts? And do you have a favorite example or tip for everyone listening about how turning a simple idea into an actionable checklist? Basically, what's your top tips for better prompting? Let's start with Dave.
Oh, sure. It's for me, it's being as specific as possible with whatever engine you're going to use. So a lot of times with any LLM or large language model tool, you garbage in, garbage out. So people give these tools a bad rap when they just say, hey, build me a blog post.
Right.
Instead, you need to be very specific and tell it who you want it to be. Hey, you're a marketer with 30 years experience and you specialize in the industry that you're trying to target. And then you give it very specific instructions about here's what's worked in the past. Here's some things that we've done. I want you to talk about this particular phase of the buyer's journey. You can get as marketing nerdy as you want inside of these things, and really anything in general, because the entire point of LLMs and all of this AI is it goes against the entire universe of human knowledge, and it puts it into little nuggets, and then it replays it for you based on what your prompt is. So your goal in prompting is to be very clear in here's what I expect, here's what's worked, and here's what hasn't worked, and here's the length and the output that I'm looking for from you as well. And that applies across imagery and presentations or CRMs or what have you. But the more detail you can give it, the better you're going to be in the long run.
Great. How about you, Maria? Do you have any even specific examples of interesting prompts that, or unexpected prompts that turned an idea into something that you could use?
Yes, I actually am a big fan and user of reverse prompting. So I do that quite a bit, which is to give everybody a definition is just leaning into what AI can do, which can go out and crunch and access a bunch of data and information and bring the information to you. So instead of giving it, so to speak, a role, I talk about and ask, who are the top 3 at doing this? So who are the top 3 experts in the USA at doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be, it could be business related, Dave, like you were talking about, or for myself, it could be, where I'm asking who are the top 3 experts at prepackaged meals so they're ready for the week. And so I don't have to think about that all week. And then it'll give me who those top 3 are. And now me as the human in charge can look at it and review, decide, okay, yes, I like this person. Oh no, that's a chef. And there's no way that this person, I'm going to do anything that a chef can do. But I start looking through and discerning. And then the next thing I'll do is ask, what would they do and how would they work together to collaborate to come up with a nice 1-week meal system? So it gives me a lot of ideas that way. And I enjoy doing that. It just helps me because, again, sometimes on the fly, I don't remember exactly what the different acronyms are of the different prompts, but that one I can remember pretty quickly. And I use it a lot for everything, personal and business.
So you mean by reverse prompting, are you using the AI tool to help you write the prompt itself?
Yeah, yes. So what happens then in that third step of a reverse prompt, I asked how they'd work together. I said, great, put that together now so you can instruct yourselves as the entity of 3 now morphed into 1. If you could do that, tell me what you would need to know and what you would need to do to put a weekly plan for me, or meal plan together for me, or to be able to put a blog post or put together a plan of how we'll run this event or different activities. It gives me a chance to see a different perspective a lot of times that I would have never considered just because of the different vantage point from the different experts, so to speak, that it's bringing to the table.
Okay, wonderful. So
one other thing that with Maria and the reverse prompting, it reminded me that one of the things that we like to do inside of some of our subsequent prompts is to do what we call backcasting. So there's the idea of forecasting, right, where you're going forward and guaranteeing and getting a result. But in backcasting, you start and you say, imagine we have created the most successful marketing campaign in the entire history of the universe. What will we have had to do in order to get there? So you assume a positive intent, and then you let the LLM, the AI tool, back it up for you and build your steps.
So you're deconstructing from the output or the outcome that you wanted to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yes, and Dave, actually, I do the other. So you're on the positive, I'm on the other. It's 2 years. We're going 2 years ahead, and the business or the idea has failed. Why did it fail, and where were the gaps that happened that we need to be aware of in that failure? So I've even had it write an actual postmortem report of what happened with the business, and then we've gone in to take a look to see, okay, let's make sure we structure this in. So I've done the other.
I love that.
Interesting. I mean, one of the questions that I had, in mind to ask you guys was about project management and specifically about business owners wearing different hats. So it sounds like, Maria, your perspective would help you with logistics or schedules or dependencies and red flags. So I'm just curious, have either of you ever used an AI tool that caught a blind spot or a risk in your own business, maybe, that you hadn't considered? I'm just curious. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Tell me about it.
And one of the things that you need to do I hope people are jotting down ideas for their own prompt libraries, and I'm sure we'll plug prompt libraries in a minute.
I already wrote down backcasting.
Good, perfect. But one of the things that I explicitly ask my entire team to do, but also in every post or every engagement that I do with my clients, is to specifically ask for blind spots. And so, what haven't I thought of? And if I was, compare this against my competitor. And in some tools, you can even include websites and have it review my competitor's website. What are they doing that I'm not? And so, looking at those kinds of things is incredibly powerful. The way AI tools are generally built is, again, they go against the history of knowledge and they repackage it in new and novel ways. And so that's a brilliant way to identify blind spots because it kind of does it by design. And so, specifically, we had a client where it was an asphalt paving company, and they had done a number of things in residential, but were looking to break into commercial. And so we said, if we are breaking into commercial for this client, how are we going to engage the people that we need to find? And who haven't we thought of? We are going to, hiring managers, property managers, those folks. But then it looked at and thought of real estate agents, like commercial real estate agents. It's like, you should go for them because they're reviewing properties all the time. And if they have a terrible parking lot, they're going to want to tell the owner to improve it. So it's just, you need to ask in order to get there.
Oh, I love that. So you're sort of asking it, what am I forgetting to ask or forgetting to do in the first place?
Right.
It's a great suggestion. Maria, do you have anything to add on to that? Dave?
Well, I actually because I do a lot of video meetings, and actually my note takers are with me everywhere I go, and people know that. So I'm very upfront about it, but it's nice to be able to have AI go through the actual notes and to review. And my question is always, where did I miss opportunities, or I didn't hear somebody ask a question, or I didn't respond fully, so that it can give me the feedback and I don't have the blind spot of just assuming everything went well because we smiled and, the meeting ended successfully in my mind. I can actually get an objective perspective there through the actual transcript. And then I've also done that I worked with a manufacturing company, and we were establishing their AI council. And so as we put their AI council in, they all had questions, and everybody had a lot of different questions their first time. So it was nice that the note taker picked that up. AI was able to take a look at that and organize some future training. So it gave me an opportunity to see what actually the gaps were instead of just what I caught from my manual notes.
Interesting. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but both of you have said things that sort of flagged for me questions about guardrails for using AI. And in the presentation that we gave earlier, we talked about the ACT rule to act responsibly by assessing, considering, and telling, and being mindful of privacy. So I'm just curious about, for you as business owners, how do you handle PII, personally identifiable information, and confidential client data? And how do you disclose to your clients, for example, the note taker that you were just talking about, Maria? How do you handle that?
Sure. For me, at the very front, Dave, if you don't mind, I'll jump in. At the very front, I let everyone know. In fact, on my website, I have an AI use and policy that is actually posted publicly there on anything that we're using, any models, any tools, how we execute on it, and what we do whenever we're in client meetings. So I do make sure that that's been reviewed and they know that ahead of time. I always ask permission. So if somebody says, no, Maria, I don't feel comfortable doing that, then I'm fine with that as well. They don't have to keep that on. And I try to always look through and remove things like names and such, so that we're not having to worry about that being placed in there. Or if they cover any personal information, I may even pause the recording to do that, or completely take that out before I ever feed it to AI. I'm very clear in our policy, and this is also what I teach. Anytime you transition from a tool to giving it to AI, there should always be human QA, quality assurance. So that's that human in the loop, or the human in charge, who looks at it to see whether or not AI needs that information. So that is very critical to our policy, because there are also, as I know in businesses, people using what is termed shadow AI. They're using it on their mobile phone. So if there's nobody talking about it in a business, they're still using it, but they may be using their personal and a mobile hotspot. So they're not using Wi-Fi or any of the office intranet systems to be able to access it. And they may not be aware that it's happening, but it is happening.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. How about you, Dave? Any other thoughts on this? Or?
The general guidance that I give, certainly my team, and I think that's important, is that you train everyone that you work with on how to responsibly use AI. The first general rule is probably to always make sure that you're using a paid tool. As if you're using a free tool, generally the rule of thumb is that that uses training or uses what it ingests as training data. So use a paid tool wherever possible, especially if you're doing anything remotely concerning or that you're dealing with your competition or what you're trying to do on some related things that you wouldn't want the AI tool to learn and share, right? But then also, I think it's important to keep track of what you're using and how. Like Maria said, I mean, you can take the contents of a recording, and again, ideally, there's lots of free meeting recorders. I would just use a paid one at some level to make sure that that data is not used for training, because you have so many conversations and you talk about all kinds of things and you're not thinking about that, right? So take the transcript of that and load it up into a tool, an AI tool, and have it transcribe it, or take that transcription and then you can put it into a spreadsheet or a document and just literally search all and replace to get rid of that content. Or like Maria said, you can cut out the sensitive parts in what you're dealing with. Another thing that I thought was fascinating in a recent training that I did was one of the attendees said that they work with a tool that, per its licensing, it says that you can't use that tool's outputs in AI. So what they did is they took the gist of what they learned from that tool. It's like, here are the big gleanings, learnings, and they kind of anonymized that, and then they loaded it into their AI to brainstorm against and to think through what they're trying to get done. So, you never would want to take photos of things and like receipts. You would never want to upload large customer data lists and put that content in there.
Okay.
And you could, however, just have like industry and the data behind that, right? So you have to think about what the level is, so that it's actionable and something that you can actually use to get something done, versus sharing confidential information. And if you wouldn't send it in an open email or in a blog post on your website, you probably shouldn't be loading it, certainly into a free AI tool.
So are you telling me that I have to read the terms of service, Dave?
It's probably a good idea.
Okay.
You might want to just ask your favorite AI tool to give you the gist of that terms and conditions and say, anything I'm missing here that I need to be concerned about.
Okay. I love that. So we've been touching, both of you talked about the concept of brainstorming and using AI tools to brainstorm with your clients or your customers or pitches or your own team. And another topic that we covered in the workshop was how to use AI as a strategic partner to sort of overcome that blank page problem. You're just staring at the screen. You're going, I don't even know where to begin. So I'm just curious, how do you, either of you or both of you, personally use AI tools as your brainstorm partner? And maybe let's make it a little more specific. Is there a specific time where you were completely stuck on a project or a task or something, and an AI tool helped you get through that, whether as a sounding board or some way to get you out of that being stuck problem? So who wants to go first?
I can jump in. One of the things that I was struggling with recently, we were looking at upgrading our podcast, because we do a marketing thing. It's important to be in front of as many people as possible and be as useful as possible to as many people as possible. So having a podcast seemed like a good thing, but there's so many podcasts out there that we're like, how are we going to be useful to our intended audience? And so loaded into our AI tools, and we used several different tools to get different perspectives. So loaded all of that in and said, here's who we're trying to reach. Here's who our personality matches We loaded up about us pages from our website, some pages from our client websites, from our ideal customer profiles or our ICPs or personas, and said, based on all of that information, what should we do for this podcast? And it gave us a brilliant list and some fantastic new ideas that we hadn't thought of, as well as some recommended guests to connect with.
Oh, cool.
And that was one of the things that it's almost worse than writer's block is like finder's block. Like, who do I even talk to have engaging conversations about these things? So that was one of the fun ones that we did recently.
Interesting. And Maria, how about you? How have you used an AI tool to get yourself past a roadblock, whether that's just a, writer's block or just not knowing where to proceed or how to proceed?
Well, it's funny. It was one of my first uses of AI. And it was a friend of mine who recommended, hey, with AI, since you're utilizing AI to be able to look through and improve, like everybody else who starts with it, improve emails, improve writing, get some ideas, do a little bit of searching for you is where we get started. Ask AI to actually look and see where some of the gaps are, give you that opportunity. But let's do it in a fun way and ask AI to roast you. And I thought that was the most interesting because I was like, I read through that and I thought, oh my gosh, it gets me. It understands me. But it was able to help me pinpoint the areas and how to prioritize what I needed to do next. So I thought, okay, great. This really gives me an idea of where to go to this next quarter, because everything at that moment for me was feeling like it all needed to be the first thing done. And I just, of course, could not do that. So I needed to know what was the most urgent, the most important. And sure enough, that fun exercise helped me so much. It was also very eye-opening.
Well, I can't imagine how we could roast you, Maria, because you're wonderful. Taking that a step further, Maria, do you use AI for content creation or anything like that?
I do for ideas. So I might bring up an idea and ask it to think about 10, 15 other spoke ideas or ideas that actually branch off of there. Questions that people are asking, what would be the logical next question given this persona? Again, loading and giving information even on what the ideal person is or the ideal client is that we're focusing on. And that will help me create some content. And that gives me some of the beginning information. Now, this is when the human comes in to look through and go through the different nuances, because I may not say, a plethora of ideas that may seem facetious. That may not be Maria speaking, but Maria in her very practical, non-technical terms is going to say it this way. So I'm going to rewrite it, put in my perspective, even the stories that I have, because that's something AI doesn't have. It doesn't have our passion or inspiration. So that definitely needs to be a part of all of our content.
Because let's be real, if you just let the tool write it for you, it can sound pretty fake or too corporate speak. Do you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Oh, it's so gross, and you can spot it from a mile away.
Yes. I agree 100%. It's too much.
I will go out there, guys, as a journalism major from a long time ago, I did naturally write with an M dash.
Me too. Oh my God.
Yeah, I can't find M dashes anymore. So that makes me sad. But Dave, tell me about how your approach to this. How do you make sure, if you're using AI tools, that the output doesn't have that inauthentic sound of a bot writing your stuff?
One of the cool parts about a number of the new content generation tools is that you can specify the persona and give it it's almost like you're preloading prompts anytime you build this. So what you can do is you can build like a brand guideline overview, and you load that into the tool. So in a CMS, a content management system, you can load that up and you can say, okay, well, help me generate a blog post in this frame or this style or targeting this client. Now, like Maria said, it's really important. I think, Stasia, you mentioned in your presentation, human in the loop, right? You are the expert. And so content can never, ever, ever go out that doesn't have expert editing done. And it really needs to be at least 60% human in order to be truly valid in AI search and AEO. And so what you need to do is just kind of think about that and build it. But like our content team at my company, what they do is they've built personas for me. So if they know that it's going to be a blog post that's supposed to be written by Dave, it's a little cheekier, it has a little bit more technical, and it tends to be a little higher level. If it's one of our actual development team, it's like, okay, we'll make this person not quite as cheeky, but more detail oriented. And they really focus on SEO and content and these things. So make sure that you hit those high points. And that speeds up the content process without destroying the actual content that you're delivering. And then the other thing that we finally always do is we will run it through a different tool and say, how is this? And do you have any recommendations based on the needs of, and then you load up your prompt with, I need to reach marketers that are in their, first part of their career that are looking for very tactical, actionable things, or whatever it is that you need as generating content. So, use a few tools, make sure that you build out personas that you can create and use to kind of help you jumpstart. And that's a great way to generate higher quality, better output. And you can do things as simple as, and again, for Stasia, for you and I as journalists at heart, remove all the M dashes. It's just a little stab to the heart, right?
Yes.
But that's a common thing. If you see too many M dashes in any given content, I was looking at a blog post a couple weeks ago, and they gave a huge list of common AI generated terms. And it tends to be a little bit more flowery and use terms like obviously, or, everybody knows, or that kind of stuff. And what it's done is it's learned from all of the best clickbaity articles in the universe. And so it's reusing all of that. Yeah. So excising all of that explicitly and saying, never use these words is incredibly helpful. And you can do that at the top level of your AI tool and say, in our writing, never ever use this. And then you don't have to do it every prompt.
Okay. Oh, and that concept just caught my ear. If you were, for the business owners who are listening into today's discussion, if they've never done this before, and I think you called it a brand style kit or a brand marketing kit. So what elements should people put in that? I'm just curious of how do I tell an AI tool how I want to sound? So what kind of documents or information goes into that?
It really depends on the kind of content that you're looking to generate. So for image generators, you say, here are our corporate colors. Here's a brand guide with the kinds of things that we like. I have a great friend in the marketing sphere that he always does all of his stuff in like kind of superhero comic book style.
Oh, cool. Which
is hilarious. And I love it. But, so for imagery, it's very simple where you just say these colors, here's our logo, include that. For my company, it's all kind of honeycomb related and bee themed or whatever. And that's fun. But load up actual examples of your favorite content into that brand kit and say, make your articles sound like this. And think about the personalities. If you've done any persona work or ICP work, ideal customer profiles, you can take all of those demographics, psychographics, what makes that kind of person tick as they're thinking about your business, and literally load a PDF into the brand kit and say, remember to write for Marketing Mary, or remember to write for, business owner Ben. Okay. I always alliterate a little bit so that it's easy to remember, but, so putting that stuff in, but then also link to your own content, your own website, your own About Us page, or your clients or whoever you're writing for, because the tool knows enough to go to that page and to refer to it. And so that makes it super, super easy to kind of, you give it a couple of links and it knows almost everything it needs to right from that. And then you can fine tune it down. And you do need to iterate. So let it generate some things and then say, yeah, I want it a little more goofy or a little bit more corporate. For my stuff, include a few dad jokes wherever possible,
I was
but
going to
keep them
say,
very
the dad
G-rated.
jokes.
Yes, yes. So always fun.
So, Maria, Dave started, he kind of opened that door to talk about multimodality. So that's this idea that AI tools can work with different formats, not just text. So switching gears just a little bit and talking about multimodality, I was wondering, are you using it, and if how, and basically what advice do you have to people listening about using AI's multimodal capabilities?
So what I like to do often, and it seems like almost every hour of the day, I take screenshots of things that I'm going through, that I'm doing. So it could look also, and I'll say, take a look at this. I need to see where I can find this or what the opportunities are here. And that's how I use it quite a bit. I'll even ask it to put an output of what would make this better? What would you recommend, given that you now know our ICP and I've trained you on some foundation of content, also doing the same thing, uploading content, or even giving it access to lots of transcripts from different videos. So to see how different questions that I've answered, or perhaps the client has answered, to give them a better idea, or give AI a better idea of what the tone is. And then I get some feedback from AI. It could be in the form of a picture. It could be in the form of a video, depending on the output that I asked it for, or asked it to be creative. And that really, again, helps me to see something from a different vantage point that wasn't even in my scope, or even anything that I was considering. And I love that. I love just the ability to have more time to creatively think, that it's not me having to go out, although I love walks. I don't have to specifically go out in the West Texas wind and get hit by a dust storm to be creative. I can now go out to AI and say, let's look at all of this. And it gives me an idea of different things that I may not even have thought of. It was funny. One of my, again, first uses, I'm going to go to a personal use with AI, was I was trying to do a recipe, or trying to come up with recipes. So you can see cooking's a part of my life. That I actually took a picture of my refrigerator and said, what am I missing here, to the ingredients to make this? And it was very helpful to come up with, well, you could make this with what you have in your refrigerator. I thought, oh, this is awesome. I'm just going to be doing this all the time, instead of brainstorming over what do I need to prepare. So I like to use it to save time and just help me also stay creative. And it helps me keep excited so I can focus on what I like to do.
Oh, that's great. Dave, do you happen to have any examples, or any surprising or unconventional ways that you've used multimodality to solve a problem, whether that's business or personal?
I think there's pretty much anything that you can do and you can dream, you can make AI do in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. The key thing that I've learned is that different people learn differently and they interact differently. So, like, one of my favorite things to do is I'll load up all of my content into my tool of choice, and then I'll ask it to create a podcast for me.
Okay.
And then, some tools you can even break in and ask and make it into like a call-in radio show, where you can get that information back, and you can literally, if you're just a verbal processor, and I am so much, as you can probably tell, unless my mouth is moving, I'm not really thinking. And so being able to talk through things is incredibly helpful. Taking pictures of things, Maria, you mentioned the cooking. I do the same thing with cocktails. I take a picture of my liquor cabinet and I say, what am I missing if I want to have a Easter themed cocktail party or whatever? And it'll come up with, oh, you need this thing. And it's incredible fun. The one watchword on that is, again, be careful on what you're taking pictures of, or if you're shooting video, or, it's possible. A lot of people that I see going to conferences, I speak at conferences all the time, is people will literally open up their LLM tool of choice and they'll say, record this, and then it'll transcribe it. And you kind of have to make sure that you have the permission of whoever you're recording. Mm-hmm. And especially depending on what state you're in. Some states are one party notification states, and some are two. which means that everyone that you're recording needs to give explicit permission that it's okay for you to record. So making sure that you're careful with that is important. But, try different things. And just because you're used to text, because that's what we've always kind of thought about in our world, we're all kind of email based and blog based and all that stuff is certainly in marketing, doing videos, doing content, doing, just talking with your favorite LLM is incredibly empowering. It feels kind of weird at first, but once you get the hang of it and you fire up your app on your phone and literally ask it. I mean, Gemini has this, ChatGPT has this. You can do this inside of like tools like HubSpot or Copilot, and you just ask it like, okay, well, what are the 3 deals I need to focus on today? Or I have a tool that records all of my calls and all of my meetings, but then based on specific keywords that I give it, it's like I can say, add this to the CRM, or I need to set a task for this, and it'll open up my CRM tool. It will log the task and give it to me for tomorrow. And I don't have to do any of that stuff. So as a salesperson, I'm busy working on relationships and forming a connection with people. I don't have to keep reminding myself and scribbling notes all the time.
Doing all that data entry.
So much freeing. Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's really cool, Dave. And going back to your comments about privacy, I guess that all fits back into that assess, consider, and tell people about your use of AI.
Absolutely.
Sort of your guiding principles for that. Wow. Okay. We're coming around the bend. So I felt like we absolutely needed to touch on data before we started wrapping up today's panel discussion. And so we know that AI is great at analyzing data and spotting trends that wouldn't necessarily be obvious to us as humans. And so I'm curious how you guys leverage AI to do this, and more specifically, how do you use AI to tell the story behind big sets of numbers? So Maria, did you want to take it first?
Sure. A lot of times, especially in working with a lot of founders and business owners, and being one myself, we've operated everything that we've done by our guts and gut instinct and making some decisions that way. So one of the favorite ways for me, because I work with a lot of family-owned businesses, is often the family business information is in someone's head, one person's head, the founder, and they may be teaching their kiddos, or even bringing in somebody who's been a loyal team member, and they're looking eventually at succession planning, but they don't really know how to get the knowledge from here out there. So sometimes just speaking that information, getting all of that out, and then now what AI can do is take that and start collating that, segmenting, even categorizing that into top topics. So as I tell owners, I said, I'm not asking you to speak to AI all day long. I'm asking you to just sit down when you have a thoughtful minute and record an idea, or record some of the things that you have come across, that you've seen, and that you want to make sure somebody wants to know more about. Then it can ask clarifying questions of, tell me more, but let's get this information down. And to me, that is how it can actually go through data and start sorting through it and really pulling out the story. I've also worked and done this myself, where, you record. As business owners, you get ideas every single day, and not everything is something you need to take action on. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting when you do 30 days of recordings, just even a little snippet saying, this, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about this. And then you have that information actually in AI, debate each other, ask questions, clarifying questions. You start seeing whether or not this is something viable, or that was just me on Tuesday. That seemed like fantastic idea on Tuesday, and there's no way I'm going to do that now and on Thursday.
Not on Thursday, no.
So yes, that's how I like to use it, and really helps put some of that structure together of a story.
I love that idea, Maria. And I also, that kind of like fits into our multimodality, where you're taking the audio recording and then you're transforming it into data that you can use. Dave, how about you? Do you have any other examples of how you or your business may use data or AI to help make the story or make sense of that data?
Yeah, there are tools where you can load disparate data into an LLM and have it help you consolidate based on only that training data.
Okay.
And I think that's important to try and to play with, because one of the things that we do in all of our client relationships is we'll have lots of interviews with clients. And so I have an entire continuum of a conversation from the very first sales conversation all the way through to every delivery and results meeting that we have with our customers. And it starts completely, we put it all into one bucket, and it just keeps learning and keeps growing, and it gives us that content. So it could be something as outside of the marketing world as we had a client that had a big shakeup in their leadership team. And we interviewed all of the members of the person that left, so all of their direct reports, and said, you know, what did we need to do better? What do we need to do, you know, differently? And what have we learned, or what are your biggest concerns moving forward? And that was all recorded conversations. And we loaded all of those conversations into this tool. We did anonymize them before we loaded them into the tool, so that we didn't have to worry about, well, Mary said this popping up, but asked it then, what should we do? And what kind of a person do we need to hire to let this team flourish in, or to take advantage of, you know, the strengths of the team? Or do we even need to hire a different person? Or is one of the people that we just interviewed and we talked to going to be a natural leader inside of that space? It wound up that one of the people, the answers that they gave were so clear, so concise, that it became clear that maybe that was their next person in that succession. And they were able to literally hire that person. And that person went in knowing exactly what their challenges were, because it was literally codified in a pre-built presentation that took 15 seconds to generate. And it just gave all the themes, all the content, all the things that that leadership team needed to think about in that decision process. So just because it's not entering a prompt into a computer, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not usable, or that you can't use AI to help you generate that kind of clarity and that kind of additional context. And the only other thing that I'll say about this is, don't get married to one tool, because specific tools are very good at doing specific things, you know, like Claude and those kinds of things are great at coding and building websites, and ChatGPT is great at ideating, and Gemini has things like Notebook LM, which you can put everything into. All of those are great, but the true power of AI comes in learning from the benefits, or where other tools are stronger than others, and getting additional contexts. So don't get locked in. Just think about, okay, bop what you have from your results from one tool, put it into another, and say, what am I missing? Or what did we miss? I had a client actually send me a website that they had generated through a tool of some sort, and they did it in 15 minutes. So I was like, okay. I asked one of my favorite tools, is like, okay, what was this built in, and what would you recommend from an SEO perspective? And it destroyed it. It was great. It was wonderful. It was like, you really need to work with Dave. And so that was funny.
That's fantastic. And your answer gave me idea. I don't even know if I want to do this though, but I'm so curious about having AI analyze my own responses to particular questions in order to make my own responses better. So that seems like a potentially useful exercise, so I can improve whatever I'm speaking about. We're running low on time. So I did want to close our discussion with two big topics, or two ways to close this off. And the first one is misconceptions. And people have lots of ideas about AI tools and concerns. And so my question to you is, what is a common misconception that small business owners may have about AI tools, and how do you address it? And we'll start with Maria.
They think it's techie, that it has to be something that is high tech or it belongs in IT. It doesn't. It is something that you can use daily. As I was just talking about, for me, it's, from personal to professional, I utilize it. And it's a great how-to helper. So I know there's a lot of intimidation, especially when I'm at conferences speaking. I'll be approached by several people who feel like, there's no way, this is way past, my time. I don't do this. And I explain to them, the good thing that you have is you have such great experience and critical thinking skills that the conversations and the information that you can get from AI and glean and perspective will be something that you've never had that opportunity before, or may even remind you when you did have an opportunity, but you've forgotten about that. So I think just being able to ask AI first is something that people feel intimidated by. I get questions also about how do I talk to my AI, and it's just talk to it. And for me, you'll hear that already. I do type things into my AI, but I'm much faster at speaking. So I would like to do that. It's a lot easier for me. So I do that quite a bit. And I find a lot of people find great ease in being able to do that for the first time when they feel comfortable. Just ask a question. Just anytime you have a question, ask and start there. And then they get to that certain comfort level of, now I feel like it's not this intimidating tech machine or something that they technically have to figure out.
So you start by talking to it.
I do.
Okay. And Dave, following up on that, for anyone else, for small business owners who might be listening today, who still may be hesitant to try, or they may be brand new to the tools, how do you recommend the best way for them to get started trying it out?
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics because I deal with so many. I work like Maria. I work with a lot of manufacturers and just kind of business consultants, and they tend to be a little bit phobic of this. First they're worried it's going to take their job, and it's not going to take your job as much as it's going to let you do things that you never imagined before faster than ever before. And so you really need to get good at tinkering and starting to enjoy these tools. The other thing that they say is it's going to take so much more time. I don't have time to learn how to do this. So you don't have time to learn how to pull 8 hours from your work week. Now that seems like a pretty good option. If you had 8 additional hours to do something, wouldn't you want to do that? So it's important to embrace the option to play.
Okay.
And to really try this stuff.
Okay. And kind of building off of that, Dave, how do you advise these business owners to train their employees to use these tools or to think more analytically or make these data-driven decisions?
Yeah, you have to have a fair amount of training and guidance. So you should have an AI policy.
Okay.
If you're wondering about how to set up an AI policy, ask your favorite AI tool to help you build an AI policy. And so that's the first step, but it's being clear and cautious with your data and making sure that you're very clear on these are the kinds of things that you can use AI for, and here are the things that you can't. And most of those revolve around no sensitive information in and no robot information out without adult human interaction or, the human in the loop. Right. So make sure that you're editing everything that goes out. And that's pretty much the basics of any good AI policy. But, just give your team permission to play. I would recommend that you give them a baseline paid version of something. Don't just tell them, go out and find a free AI tool, because then your data is being used for training. And even if you're not sharing sensitive information, you're talking about a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't want if you wouldn't say it at full volume in a coffee shop with all of your competitors sitting in the same room. You probably shouldn't be using a free tool for that. So,
got it.
And these tools are like $20 a month for an employee. Everyone in my team, I have like 7 different AI tools that we use, and all of them are about $20 a month. And so we give everyone the chance, pick one. You can't have 7, but pick one and make that work for you. And if you need to change, go ahead and change. Just, cancel the other one before you do. And that's a great way to keep your costs controlled and to keep your data secure and to get people started on working with this stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing is to be able to share and make sure to share with your employees, with your teams. This is not going to take your job, because the goal is to do more and not to get rid of people, or at least that's not my goal. So, I started and I was very clear. We want to do more. We want to be able to identify blind spots and serve our clients better than ever. And we just need to know about all this stuff. So please get something, play with it, use it, be careful, and make sure that you're the final say on any content or any data that goes out on behalf of us or our clients.
Excellent. And Maria, and we'll let you wrap this one up. How do you advise the business clients that you work with on the best way to learn AI tools? If they've never done this before, if this is their first day, how would they start?
Well, I actually start asking them first, make a list of the AI you're currently using, you and your team members.
Yeah, what if they're not using anything yet?
Yeah. Well, even if they're not using anything, there are somebody's using something on their phone. So I ask them to first do that, because it's important to know what you have first, where the leaks could be, because you are going to need to put an AI policy together and get the team together. Really, what I ask the team is get together and see who would like to be, the champion, who's the one who's really excited about learning about AI, potentially using it. So now they can take us in deeper through some of what they're learning and training. And then I encourage them to start, utilizing it for different ideas that they have, just kind of pinging different ideas, kind of like how they would search for things, but now utilize AI so they can see different perspective. And this gives them a chance to actually play with the tool, and it feels less intimidating for them. It also gives them a chance to do an inventory of all tools, see where everybody's at, and also benefit from each other's experience. I'm a big fan of OPE, other people's experience. I think there's so much value there. And sometimes that's the first conversation a team has, and you'll be surprised. I mean, I worked with large teams, small teams, and it never fails when I ask that first question about tools. I will have people actually have to call their bookkeeper and say, can you pull up the invoices and see what tools we're paying for? Because they don't know what tools they have. And then you see people say, well, I have it on my phone. I have it, I have this. Now you're getting to the core of how people are really using it, not just what they feel is safe to talk about in the meeting.
So make an inventory and pick a champion.
Yes.
All right. That's wonderful. Guys, we are out of time. So I just wanted to wrap this up by thanking Maria and thanking Dave for taking the time today and sharing all of these valuable insights about how AI is helping you with your businesses and your clients and your recipes or whatever you're making out there. And for everybody tuning in, happy National Small Business Week. We deeply appreciate you taking the time, and we wish you the very best with your business, helping it grow and thrive. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Let's take a moment to network with other small business owners and check out our amazing sponsor exhibitors. Lots of resources and connections waiting for you.